The black-haired girl walked stubbornly through the forest in the dark. She had fallen asleep on the train and slept through her stop. There would be no return train until morning, and she didn't want to sit alone on the platform. It was only 5 kilometers to the desired village through the woods and fields. Getting off the platform and looking at the trace of the departing train, she picked up her backpack and resolutely set off. She felt uneasy in the forest, the sounds of the night frightening her. The path glimmered in the moonlight, so it would be hard to lose her way. Soon she came out of the forest and stopped in bewilderment. Right in front of her, about 100 meters away, she saw houses, old and ramshackle, no lights burning anywhere. Strange, she couldn't have gotten to the right place so quickly. Maybe she had turned off the path after all and had come to another village? As soon as she saw a couple of houses closer, she realized the village was abandoned, and no one lived here, not even anyone to ask for directions. As she walked down the street, she noticed broken windows and broken doors in some of the houses. The place made her feel creepy. A fog had come from somewhere and was enveloping the road and the nearby houses. Suddenly she saw a light in the house at the end of the street and hurried there. Knocking on the wicket, she began to listen. There was no dog, and besides the light in the window, there was no sign of any occupants. Maybe there was no one here. "Come in if you have come," came a voice from somewhere. The girl looked closely and noticed an elderly woman leaning on a badik. It was not necessary to repeat twice. She quickly slipped into the yard. The house was clean, but old-fashioned. A lot of homemade furniture, homespun doormats. The old woman looked like Baba Yaga from a fairy tale, as old and scary. "Why are you wandering around at night?" asked the grandmother, when the girl went into the house. "I must have gotten lost, taken a wrong turn. I had to go somewhere else," answered the girl. "What's your name?" "Dasha." "Dasha, are you hungry?" the grandmother asked, squinting her eyes. What Dasha took for light turned out to be candles. Several candles were burning on the table, and there was a notebook. The grandmother turned out to be literate. While the girl was looking around, the grandmother took out a cast iron from the stove, in which there were warm potatoes. She pounced on the food as if she had not eaten for a long time. The grandmother looked at her with a grin and understanding. "You'll sleep on the bed, don't go near the windows," suddenly said the lady of the house. "I'll only stay until morning and then I'll leave," Daria answered. "Until morning, so until morning," the grandmother agreed and muttered under her breath, but the girl still heard. "But morning never comes here." Dasha lay down on the bed without undressing, and her grandmother went into the other room. She could not sleep. It seemed to her that someone was wandering under the windows and looking in. Her imagination was running wild. The girl lifted herself up on her bed and almost screamed in her voice. There was someone standing in front of the window. She crept closer and looked out the window. They were standing there, silent and not moving. About a dozen people were looking at the house. Dasha became frightened. She felt a twitch. Who were they? And what were they waiting for? Daria returned to the bed and covered herself with her shirt. The shirt was damp, but in the darkness she couldn't see what the stains were. She dozed off and was awakened by the quiet beeping of the alarm clock in her watch. 6 in the morning. But for some reason there is no sun outside the window. Not dark as night, but no light either. It was as if the clouds had shut out all the light. The day was gone. She got up and went to the window. There was no one in the yard. It was dark and foggy. Granny was rattling in the kitchen. She must have gotten up a long time ago. "There you are," said the grandmother. "Good morning. But it's a strange morning." "Where's the sun?" Dasha asked. "It's always like this here." "You'll get used to it," answered the grandmother mundanely. "What's your name?" Dasha inquired. "Me?" The woman was surprised. "Mara. But everyone calls me Baba Maria." "Baba Mash, what's going on? Are you hungry and thirsty?" suddenly asked Baba Mara. "No, surprisingly I'm not. I saw something last night. I know. Soon you'll realize it yourself." Grandma went out into the yard and sat down on a bench. Dasha sat down next to her. She felt strange. "What is this place?" Dasha asked. "A place of transition, a road for people like you." "Until you accept the truth, nothing will work," answered the grandmother. "I want to leave. Go. No one's holding you." Dasha took her backpack and noticed that the potatoes were in the pot again, and it seemed to be the same potatoes. Bullshit. Hurriedly saying goodbye, the girl went out the gate. Make the background music Oni music. The girl walked out of the village, but she couldn't see any forest or field, only the road in the fog. Her electronic clock stopped and kept showing 11:30. How far had she traveled? And the time? Something had changed in herself. It was as if she wasn't the same as before. Suddenly she saw the roof of some house. Yay, she did it. No, it can't be. She was back in that abandoned village. Her feet brought her to Grandma Mara's house. Or Maria. Who was she? There was something familiar about her name. It was dark outside, and only the light of the candle on the window beckoned her into the house. Dasha pushed open the door with some doom. The grandmother sat just as she was at the table and without turning her head said, "She's back." And it was not a question but a simple statement of fact. "She's back. I don't understand anything. Soon, soon. Are you hungry?" "No, not hungry or thirsty." "Then lie down." Dasha obediently lay down on the bed and closed her eyes. Suddenly it was like an electric shock, a bright flash in her head, a whirlwind of memories flooded her consciousness. She remembered everything and sobbed. After crying all her tears, she stood up and went to the window. There were people standing in the fog, looking at the windows and waiting. They were waiting for her. "You remembered everything," came Mara's quiet voice behind her. "Accept it and go." Yes, Dasha did remember. That day she had had a fight with her fiancé and decided to run away to her mother's village. Just as she had asked to come, to remember her grandmother and other relatives. She caught the last train, but from fatigue and stress she fell asleep. She slept through her stop and got off at the next station. She got off alone on the platform. Dasha knew this stop. She also remembered perfectly well that through the forest you can quickly reach your home village. She did not notice that there was someone standing on the platform, under a spreading tree. It was a tall man who followed Dasha and caught up with her in the forest. The girl became frightened, but when the man overtook her, she calmed down. Again she saw him in the middle of the path. She thought she was lost, as the trail did not end. The man was waiting for her. As soon as she approached and asked for directions, he pounced on her. Dasha felt intense pain in her body, fear. She lost consciousness and remembered nothing else. Dasha rode the electric train again, walked through the forest alone, and came to this house. Talked to old Mara, spent the night, saw those dead people in the yard, and she couldn't remember or accept it. She was dead. Long ago, she was killed on a forest path in the woods. She wasn't the first victim of this subhuman. Yes, I remember. I'm a ghost, and Dasha, not exactly. You're a lost soul who can't find a way out. You've been wandering for years in the fog, traveling the same path. But now it's over. You must accept your death. And leave. How? How does it happen? It's different for everyone. You don't even recognize the people waiting for you out there. The old woman pointed out the window. Dasha came closer and took a closer look. Her eyes remained dry. She could not cry anymore. In the courtyard stood her relatives. She recognized her uncle, her grandmother, her grandfather, and her mother. "How long has it been?" Dasha asked, looking out the window. "A long time. 5 years." Suddenly Dasha felt lighter, the heaviness, fear, and pain gone. She turned to the old woman. Taking her hand, the girl smiled. "Thank you, you've helped me. Go. Sleep well, girl." The woman stroked her cheek. Dasha stepped out into the courtyard where she was surrounded by her deceased relatives. The silhouettes became more transparent. They disappeared one by one. The fog was dissipating. Soon the courtyard was empty. Dasha left, her soul calmed. She accepted her fate. The mistress of the house closed the notebook in which Daria's name flashed and went out. Old Mara extinguished the candle and the house plunged into darkness. Until the next lost soul who wanders the same way on the path of ignorance of his fate. "Who's that?" the boy asked his friend as they walked from the train. In the middle of the forest stood a small black monument. A beautiful girl looked down from it with the dates of life and death below. Oh, that local celebrity. "It's been about 5 years since the last train. No one travels to this station," answered the friend. 5 years ago she was walking off a train and was attacked by a maniac, a real maniac who was caught. He killed her brutally and left her. She wasn't found until the next evening. They said that if she'd been there sooner, she'd have been saved. But it was the last train. A friend told me, looking at the portrait, "What's the big deal?" She came back later. "What do you mean?" "Literally. She started showing up on the platform or in the woods. Sometimes they see her in the fields. She's always asking for directions. And if a man doesn't answer, she strangles him. But that's just a legend. I think it is told as a scare story. I do not believe in such things," answered my friend. "Does it appear now?" "No, they say it's gone. Probably her soul still went to the right place," replied the boy thoughtfully. "Come on, let's go." The boys went on down the path. Rain was falling from the sky, and when the first drops fell on the black marble, they seemed to be the girl's tears, Daria's tears. And somewhere out there in the coming darkness, in a lonely house on the edge of the village, a candle flickered.